So, welcome to the second try of having good interview. I am Monkstar from Guild-Wars2.info, and this is Isaiah Cartwright.
Hello, I'm Isaiah Cartwright, or Izzy.
So, let's start with the interview. First question is from our community: will there be something like GVG again?
So yes, we have two main types of PvP. We have a competitive PvP, which is basically a small group-based PvP with objectives that we're definitely showing here in Cologne, and it's kind of different than it was in Guild Wars 1, but it is still kind of a very fair, balanced kind of PvP with objectives where everyone's kind of on an even playing field with very match-based system, and in these objectives, it's kind of a winner's determined, so it has a very similar, deterministic where we can have automated tournaments in it, and you can have kind of a very, sports-like outcomes with it, and so from that sense, we're still pushing forward with a lot of, the things that we did in GVG, but the exact game types and all the mechanics that we had in Guild Wars 1, we do have pieces of them, like, the trebuchets in this one, and, we have capture points that we had in Guild Wars 1 from other different game types, but, the exact mechanics of GVG are not going to be there in Guild Wars 2.
Okay. Are we going to see special PvP versions of skills again, as it was in Guild Wars 1?
Most definitely. This was something that we really, really liked about Guild Wars 1, that we, after we did updates and things like that, we found it allowed us to balance things a lot better, and we're definitely moving forward that right from the beginning on Guild Wars 2. Basically, if there's any number differences between the skills, we'll probably just leave the skills there, but if there's actual functional differences between the skills, which there probably will be, we'll have those as well. So we're totally planning on having PvP and PvE skills straight from the beginning of the game.
All right, great. Do you also plan to implement tournament rankings, ratings, and matchmaking systems and so on, so for teams and for players?
So we're still working out on all of the differences on different pieces of those systems, and so the big focus right now is getting in the games and the pieces. But we know that ranking systems and those types of things and all those pieces really are what make a competitive scene fun for people to watch and enjoy and to play. And so the exact details of those we don't have really worked out. We're really focusing on the core and the pieces and getting all the framework done. And so we'll talk about those a lot more once they're settled and put together. But we know the importance of those systems, and we really plan on providing a really quality esport environment for our competitive players.
Okay. In World versus World PvP, sidekick lower level characters aren't going to be as strong as not sidekick players on that sidekick level due to worse tier, etc. How big is that gap? Could it be even possible to win against such a foe?
The biggest thing about World v. World is it's a lot more about organizing people together and being in the right place at the right time. If you're just a little bit weaker or a little bit stronger out in the field, it doesn't matter if you brought 10 friends, and so you can overcome so many obstacles and odds by having the right amount of people at the right place at the right time. And so in a one-on-one scenario, someone who's sidekicked up is going to lose or have a disadvantage, but it really that doesn't happen as much, or it's not as a big a deal, or in the core of that game world is players coming together and working together for common goals and common objectives. And so it's okay that it's not always exactly an even playing field, because the objectives of those battles is for it to be very dynamic and moving around, and lots of players to be moving together and working together. And so we're okay with that, and we're okay that the two players coming together and one side kicked up are different. It also gives you the drive to get your character up and to get him to the higher levels of those other players, and to be able to have every little advantage that you can out in World v. World.
So it's quite rare that players meet one-on-one in World versus World PvP.
Well, even if it does, being a few percentage weaker or stronger doesn't always make a difference. So we see that skill is a huge swing in how good a player can be, and weaker players will be able to beat stronger players, whether they're sidekicked or not. It's going to be how good they are, or their positioning on the battlefield, or what they do. And so I think if you're a lower level player, you're still going to be able to beat higher level players, and the system is still going to allow that. And so your skill plus your level are all going to factor in. But really, in World v World, those things don't matter as much as organization and coming together. That's really what matters.
All right. Do you have a technical limit? Oh no, we want to skip that. Sorry. Will there be underwater-based World versus World maps, or will those fights really rarely occur on PvP?
So we're not going to exactly have maps. World v World is these huge, big maps that contain almost huge parts of terrain, and there is underwater on those maps. And so, there's definitely places that the battle could be taken underwater in World v World, but the whole map is not underwater. It's just sections of the map. So.
Okay, so will there be something like capture points underwater or underwater bases, something like that?
We're still working out the details of exactly those things, but it really comes down to how the maps play and how those things feel. So we're not sure.
Okay. What can the server bonuses for being victorious in World versus World be like? How do you prevent people from just switching to a server where they get these bonuses if their own keeps losing battles? So it's like changing a region in Guild-Wars 1 if your own region is not winning.
We're still working with the details of the system, but the bonuses are definitely going to add to all sorts of aspects of the game, and we really want to reward, make you be very proud and happy of how your world is doing in World v World. And so the exact details of them, we're still working out, but the goal is that everyone is happy that you're doing good in World v World. And the way we're gonna, you'll be able to switch back and forth between different servers, and we're still working out the time frame and the details of that. But whatever those details are, you won't get the bonuses when you switch. There'll be some waiting period or some time period to get some citizenship in the new world, and when that happens, you'll have to wait. And so we'll use that kind of citizenship system to be able to stop, you to be able to jump to go get some bonuses or whatever that system is. And so that's kind of the way that we're going to prevent people from using that to jump and get bonuses. And whatever that system is, it'll probably be timed along with the duration of those bonuses. So it might not even be possible to get the bonuses ever.
Okay.
You were there to fight.
That sounds nice. Someone asked for a function to turn off the colored aura when having selected a character, and if you can make a character stop talking while casting spells.
So, one of the philosophies that we have at ArenaNet, especially when it comes to options, is we really try to give as few options while developing the game as we can, because it really forces us to make the game as right as we can. If we give this huge plethora of options while we're developing the game, then everyone will just turn off the things that they don't like, and then us as developers won't fix all the problems. Anything that we don't like we'll just turn off, and instead of polishing and continuing to iterate on things, we just tend to turn an option and make it go away. And so it's really important to us that we have as few options and we continue to iterate on the things that we find that we don't like. And so, but later on, we will add more and more and more options. And so, especially even in the demos, we even turn off tons and tons and tons of options that we have in the game, because we want it to be just a simple and clean jump-in experience. And so, that philosophy helps us drive iteration, helps us polish the things that we have in the game. But as we get closer and closer to shipping the game, we will add more and more options, because we know once you release a game, people want to be able to customize their UI, customize their experience, and really make the game's experience their own. And so we will try to provide as many options as we can. And so those particular options, I'm not sure if we're going to have them or if we already have them, but the goal, that's kind of our philosophy on options, and why probably in these demos you always see very few options. It's because we're really trying to provide the best experience and the simplest experience as we can right now.
Someone asked for a function to turn off the aura when having selected a character, and if you can make your character stop talking while casting spells. What do you tell these people?
So one of the things that we have at Guild Wars is this philosophy that when we make options for our game, during the development of the game, we keep the number of options that we have fairly low. And the reason is it allows us to iterate and forces us to really play with all the things in the game, especially a lot of our default configurations, and really makes us improve them over and over and iterate them as many times as we can. And especially even on these trade shows, we disable even some of the options that we have. And it really makes us think about everything that we have, makes us make sure that everything we have is exactly all the pieces that we need and that we're polished as much as we can. As we get closer and closer to ship, we'll add more options. When we're not in demos, we put back our options, and it's really this philosophy that allows us to provide a very simple and powerful experience to all the players. But we know that UI is really your own interface, and we know that when we release the game, that we want everyone to have a UI that they feel comfortable with. And so we'll have lots of options in the game, and those exact two options I'm not sure if we're going to have or whether we want, but we're going to have lots and lots of things that you can do and things that you can manipulate your UI. And so that philosophy is just how we treat UI and how we treat options in the game. And so there's many things that we have on a list that we're going to add to the game, and we're continuing to add to it in order to customize. But we want to make sure that the things that we have in the game are good, and that we're all not turning things off in the game that we don't feel is fully polished. And so that's why some things you don't see options for.
Okay. In Guild Wars 1, items were divided up into several categories of value. For example, white stuff was usually directly sold at the merchant. So will you have such useless stuff in Guild Wars 1 as well?
Yes, we actually really like those types of items. We have them as gray items in Guild Wars 2, but they really add a lot of flavor to the world. When you walk up to like a Drake and you kill the Drake, yeah, he could just drop gold, and you pick up gold and then you're done and you don't have to sell things. But when he drops, scales, or he drops, some battered claws, you can walk to the merchant and sell them, and it didn't do a whole lot, but it adds a little bit of reality to the world. It adds a little bit of feeling like you're in the world, and it makes that creature feel a little bit more alive. It feels like you actually killed a Drake. And there's still some suspension of disbelief. We get a lot of weapons and armor from creatures and things like that, but there's also just a feeling like when you were out there killing lots of Drakes and you look at your inventory and you got a bunch of pieces of Drakes, it feels like, okay, I was killing Drakes. And I think that's really important, to just kind of attaching your character to the world. And so we kind of enjoy those items, and it really allows us to seed the player in the world. It also does some other things like inventory pressure, and allows us to drive players back to town and get that social experience of, once you get back to town, then you're able to meet players and get that kind of constant flow back and forth from hunting to town. And so I think those items provide us with multiple things, both flavor and functional in the world. And so even though they might seem like they have a useless function from playing in the game, they're very useful.
Okay, didn't think about that. Is every pet as valuable as any other, or are there certain ones that are weaker or stronger than the rest? Does it make sense to keep your starter pet, or will you get stronger ones later in the game?
So all the pets are kind of in categories, and like the bear is a very tanky pet, and the dog is kind of a debuff pet, he's more buff pet, and where the moa bird is a very high damage pet. And so these different categories of pets, the ranger almost has pets wields like weapons. Each pet he brings can bring a different thing. And so we really want to have very strong distinctions between all of our different pets, allowing you, whichever pets you bring, to really bring different tools to the battlefield. And so the pet you bring can really bring totally unique build opportunities to the ranger, and really allow him to bring completely different tools and things to the fight. And so this is really kind of one of the big things that we're trying to do with the ranger is, not only is his build, the weapons he's bringing, the utility skills and his elite skills and his heal, but it's also what pet he brings, and that's kind of the unique feel for the ranger.
Okay, but what about pets apart from their functions? So if you have two tank pets, let's say a bear and an elephant or something like that. I don't know if you're gonna bring an elephant.
We don't have elephants, okay.
But what if they were both tanks? Would there be a difference, or do they have the exact same values? So, for example, you get a bear very early in the game, and an elephant you get at level 70 or something, an area like that. So, will the bear be stronger or weaker, or the same as the elephant?
So we'll probably have multiple. We'll have a small subset of categories of pets, and then within those there'll be different kind of like, for example, there'll be a dog and a wolf, and they'll probably use the same skills, and it's really just the skin that you really want to bring between them. Do you want to be a ranger with a dog, or do you want to be a ranger with a wolf? And we'll pick the exact number of overall categories that we want, and once we get the number of categories that we're happy with, then it's just kind of all about what skins that you want on your pet. And and then if we want more categories, we'll make a difference between the dog and the wolf, and if we want less categories, we'll combine them. And so that's kind of really what it comes down to, is how many different categories do we want among our pets, and then it's all about having visual and aesthetic differences.
So even the values of the pets are different, so unique.
So the value that your pet kind of evolves with you. He levels up, and you're able to give him skills and different things like that. And so later on, when you get a pet, it's all about kind of a category, not necessarily the strength of the pet that you trained. And so it's really about what kind of pet he is, not necessarily how powerful the pet is when you trained it. So if you train a pet later on, you're going to have to work with your pet and level him up. And that's one of the kind of things about a pet is you really want to have some emotional and time investment in the pet to make it feel like it's your pet.
All right. Okay, this is already the stuff we have on the paper. So we also got some questions on the laptop here. On average, utility skills seem to have considerably long cooldowns, much longer than the average skill of Guild-Wars 1. Is this observation correct, or is it just based on us knowing too few about the skills?
I think it's correct, but it's kind of seen from the demo. We usually tend to give the utility skills that are more flashy and more powerful longer cooldowns, and those also tend to be the skills that you see in these demos. We have about 20 utility skills per profession, and we try to give a variety of utility skills that have shorter recharges all the way to longer recharges. But overall, I think utility skills do have a longer recharge than the weapon skills. They're meant to not be as defining of what type of build you are as your weapon skills, and so they tend to be more things that shore up weaknesses in your character and things that add to what your character does, and so they tend to have a little bit longer recharges. But there are things that range from very short recharges to very long recharges in the utility line, and also depends on the profession. Some professions have slower recharges, some professions have faster recharging utility skills, and so we really try to have a lot of variance in the utility skills, but there are some that are really long and there are some that are really short.
Okay, it came up to me the question, can you tell why you decided to take the energy out, the mana, whatever it's called?
Yeah, it really kind of came down when we were playing a lot with the mechanic. We felt like it added a lot of limitation to the way you use skills when you ran out of it. It didn't feel very good in the game, and so one of the things that we did really enjoy about the game about energy is it was a really good limiting factor on how much you could roll around, and so and we wanted to kind of manipulate that. Have like for example, the thief could maybe have an ability that would give everyone more ability to dodge more, and so it was kind of fighting with itself, and so we decided to try to separate that too. And we didn't feel like skills needed the energy as an attrition mechanic. We felt like the recharge was already giving a really good attrition mechanic for us, and so we just separated it out and allowed dodge to be its own meter, and then we could kind of manipulate that in any way that we wanted. And so we'll probably play around with that and see where that goes. It's kind of a brand new mechanic that we just put in, and we just started playing around with it, and we totally plan on doing as much as we can and experimenting with that and continuing to push forward with that mechanic and seeing how we like it.
All right. Can one say, given much longer cooldowns and limited skill choice, that synergetic effects between skills are not as important anymore as they used to be in the first game?
So it is true that cooldowns can limit choices, but one of the things that we saw in Guild Wars 1 is that we had a lot of skills that had a lot of dependencies on them each other. You know, like Sever Gash is a really good example. Every time you brought Gash, you pretty much always had to bring Sever, and so we really tried to eliminate a lot of those skills. And because of this, we tried to get a lot of skills that kind of work together. And when we give you a weapon combination, we try to give you a bunch of skills that kind of go together. And sometimes they're more of kind of a mixture of utility skills or skills with a lot of utility. And this kind of setup, when you get a lot of skills on cooldown, feels like they don't combo together, but it's sort of an opportunity cost. And the goal of it is to give you a weapon that really makes you feel like a different character. Like a warrior with a sword feels like a very different character than a warrior with an axe. And yeah, you can have differences where the high recharges makes it feel like your options are going down. And we've been kind of reducing recharges and playing with the different pacings of those things, especially on the weapon skills, to get that feeling a little bit faster. You can tell that if you look at the recharges differences from this demo between last, they're significantly lower. But we're really trying to make sure that the differences between those weapons are really what drives out those combos, so that a character who chooses a sword versus a character who chooses an axe plays different. But we want the right-hand side of the bar to be slower, to be the things that are adding to your overall character. And you have a lot of ways to combo in the game that you don't see, whether it's weapon swapping and whether it's changing to other attunements, or whether it's using your Death Shroud, or using a kit from an engineer that changes your weapons. And so it can be deceptive that it seems like you don't have a lot of skills, but you end up having tons of skills in the game, and you can interact with objects, or you can stomp a character down, or you can die and or go into your down state and use your down skills. And so you end up having a lot more skills than it seems like you have. And so even we've been dropping the recharges on the weapon skills and getting them to be a little bit faster, but there's still so many skills that you're able to use all at once that we're pretty happy with the amount of combos. And then on top of that, we still have the cross-profession combo system that we really, only have little pieces of it in the demos, and we're going to probably be expanding that and getting a lot more of that in. And we've been waiting until we get all of our pieces in, because we want everything to interact with that.
Cool. It appears that Guild Wars 2 had a lot of rather complex skills that combine multiple elements, which is damage, movement, support, etc., in one ability. So can we assume that the average skill in Guild Wars 2 is more complex, thus also more distinct? If so, why have you chosen to go into that direction?
Some of the goal was to make skills more versatile in their roles, to make a skill that can be both offensive and defensive, or a skill that has multiple roles. We found that the most fun skills in Guild Wars 1 were the skills that could fulfill multiple roles. And now that we're giving you kind of multiple skills in a little bucket, whether it's 3 skills on a one-handed weapon or 5 skills on a two-handed weapon, we found that we needed to make sure that the skills could range a wide variety of functions. And because of that, skills did get kind of complicated in some fashion, but simpler in others. Like a skill like Savage Leap that just lunges you forward and stabs a guy in the face. That thing is very complicated because you can use it to run away, or you can use it to jump at a guy. You can use it to evade something by getting out of the way. And so it has all these functions as a travel skill. It ends up being this very powerful skill, but it's still very simple. It's just jump at it, move forward. And so we found that a lot of skills are very complicated yet very simple. Then we also have skills like Phoenix, which is this line projectile that goes out, explodes, and comes back and does a heal. And so it ends up being a skill that you can spike with or do AoE and also heal with. And it's this extremely powerful skill that has multiple functions and all over the place. But we find that these skills are extremely important to making the weapon feel very different from the other weapons, and also to giving you lots of tools in the battlefield, because we really want you to be able to do many many things with this limited skill bar, and it's how a small set of skills can allow you to play in many different ways and overcome many different challenges. And just a good player can be different than a player that hasn't played for a long time. It can be very versatile and do more damage.
Okay. Build complexity is a hot topic in the community, basically since the first information on restricted skill choice was revealed. Can you give estimated figures on the number of utility skills, elite skills, and heal skills per class, just a round number?
Sure. We have about 20 utility skills in the game, 3 heal skills, and 3 elite skills. And we also have... Per class. Okay. Per profession. And we also have about 8 racial skills that'll be seen in PvE. They are not seen in competitive PvP. And the racial skills are a mixture of both elite and utility skills. And so... and then there's also a large number of weapon skills, but it can vary quite a lot based on which profession you're playing.
All right. Now the screen went off. You stated that is your aim to make the build process a bit easier by making it really hard to come up with a totally bad build. Could one say on a very high level of abstraction that complexity is transferred from the build phase to the actual combat phase, where positioning, movement, and ad hoc cooperation might make things more difficult than Guild Wars 1?
I do think there is some of that. I mean, we still want to have a lot of build making in the game, and I think we still will. But there's definitely more active stuff in the game. I think one of the big things is we want it to be a little bit more obvious in Guild Wars 2 than it was in Guild Wars 1. There was tons of things that you did in Guild Wars 1 that were very subtle, that allowed you to improve your overall efficiency, do more damage, to kite around, but it was very subtle and hard to know. You know, like a lot of competitive players would have shields all in their backpack of every damage type, and they would switch it out in between the things, or they would do really odd weapon swaps in order to improve their overall recharges. And there was all these really subtleties that really allowed them to feel a mastery over the system. But it was really hard to understand and hard to learn. It made things that'd be hard to get into. And so the stuff that we expect you to master the system in Guild Wars 2 is to use really interesting dodging mechanics and roll in between attacks, or to use really good movement skills and find, elegant ways to move around the map, or to be able to use the cross-profession combo systems to combo with your allies and utilize things that are on, the battlefield in interesting ways. And these things are a little bit more, in your face and visceral and, have tangible feel to them. They're not as much manipulating pieces that didn't exactly seem like they were all there. And so that's kind of the goal, is to, have that depth, because having that strong depth is what makes someone feel good and fun, and what keeps people playing the game over and over and over again. And you want to have people feel like they've mastered a game, and that their time and effort into getting better and better at the game is paid off by them being able to defeat other people. But it's not, when the things that they're doing in order to beat other people are swapping in their inventory skills, or weapon swapping in this odd way to improve their recharge by some 20-30%, is really odd. And so I really want the things that they're doing to look cool, feel cool, and make them feel clever as players. And that's the goal of the system.
All right. This one is the next one. Cross-profession combos were announced early on, but until now we have basically only seen 2 types of them, which is projectile through AoE and whirlwind, etc. in AoE. Are there other types of combos that you can name, especially not involving area of effect skills?
So we don't have a lot of cross-profession combos in, because we've been really trying to get the core of our combat system really well defined before we start making this huge matrix of cross-profession combos. We have one that's in a couple places in the demo, which is one we call Merciless, which is things that combo off things that are things that have been knocked down. And so that's just one example. But we're looking at a big, huge matrix of cross-profession combos, which we'd like to be calling combos, because they're actually, characters can combo within themselves. Yeah. Like the ranger can drop, a burning area and shoot through it. And so the kind of combo system really allows, the whole game to function in this really interesting combo way. It's one of the reasons why we've been trying to keep the skills very basic in what they do, because they're going to be able to combo in a lot of ways. And so we're still working on that system. We're still putting that together, and we really wanted to get the basics of all the combat in a really strong way that we're happy with before we multiply it out into this huge matrix of stuff.
From your combat experience, do people use cross-profession combos frequently and on purpose, or rather accidentally? I mean, for me personally, when I played the demo, it was a bit difficult because I didn't know the skills well and I didn't have that much time. But still, I didn't really try to cooperate with other players. I have to admit that.
So this is kind of one of the beauties that we like about the cross-profession combo system and the combo system, that you can run into it by accident, and that you don't always have to have two players working together to do it. If I become really good at the system, when I see the opportunities that other players are just doing, I can adapt to it. If I'm really good, in the examples that we have, if a firewall is down there, I can just start using the firewall. And if you're a player that doesn't know anything about it, you can slowly learn about it. And so in the beginning, when you don't understand how to use it, you just kind of accidentally start running into it, and you start going, oh, hey, that accidentally started working. That's cool. But as you start getting better and better at the game, you start adapting to it. And so, the character that has projectiles will start seeking out the things to combo with it, and the character with stuff to put down firewalls will start putting it in front of his allies or positioning it in ways to help other people. And then naturally they start to combo together, where you start to be happy to see people that combo with you. And that kind of natural synergy is really what gives us some fun teamwork in the game, and that's really the whole goal of the combo system.
Okay, how strong are cross-profession combos compared to normal skills? Are they balanced to be merely the icing on the cake, or are they powerful enough to add considerably to a team's efficiency? So let's put an example. So if you're a warrior and use your first skill with your bow, and it deals let's say 1,000 damage, and then an elementalist comes and puts down a firewall, and you shoot through that firewall, will be 1,100 damage, or rather 3,000 damage, or something like that.
So the ratios of that damage has changed a lot. We've gone all the way from it being, adding, hundreds and hundreds of damage to that, to adding very little. I think we tend to want cross-profession combos to be more powerful than weaker, because we want to encourage the teamwork, encourage the payoff. But we're really trying to work on what those actual ratios are going to be. So I tend to believe that we're going to probably land on things, cross-profession combos being more effective and encouraging people to seek them out and do them. But that's really the goal, is to see how they, what those ratios are going to be overall in the end. But that's my guess, is that we're going to end up with that. And when it comes to balance, numbers change very frequently and very often, up into the very last second. And so it's hard to really guess exactly what we're going to end with. But I can tell you that our goals are probably to make combos a very powerful and prominent, system in the game.
All right. Could you give us a round number on how many cross-profession combos there are in the game at this point? So I think it's really difficult to say, because you probably have huge numbers, but what would you say?
So there's no exact number that we're aiming for, but we're really trying to make sure that every class feels like they have some good way to combo with every other class. And so, we need to really play around and make sure that is, that's kind of one of our goals of the system. And so that number is going to be very dependent on the systems and the overall number of skills and combos and the matrix that we're able to provide. So it's hard to really pick an exact number of the systems that we come up with, but that's kind of our goal.
A few thousand or something?
Yeah, it's hard to say.
Okay. There's quite some confusion about whether every profession can fulfill any of the three basic combat roles, which are support, damage, and control, equally well. Do you intend to balance things so that literally everyone can do everything on exactly the same level, or do you plan giving every class multiple options in combat, but not necessarily the same options?
So the goal isn't that every profession actually is able to be completely equal in every role. We actually want multiple professions to feel better in each role. Like, we want some professions to be better damage dealers, and we want some professions to be better support characters, and we want some professions to be better tanks. But we want every role to feel like you can be every different role, and that they have a unique niche that they fulfill in that role when they do go that. For example, the thief, you wouldn't expect him to be the best tank in the world, but you can make a thief that is very evasion-y tank. If a thief takes a short sword, he can bounce in and out and actually have, quite a bit of evasion. And so this isn't the best tank in the world, but he actually can be a pretty good tank. And if he's fighting something like a really powerful enemy that has very slow attacks, like let's say an Etten that's a champion level that does really powerful, that's going to kill people, he can sit there and tank an Etten for a really long time because the Etten can never really hit him because every time he evades. And so he doesn't even really take much damage. He doesn't really need to heal. He can tank that guy for a really long time. But he's not going to do good up against something that's dumping lots of conditions or something that's hitting really often. And so the thief might be the best tank in some situations, but he might not be the best tank on all situations. And so the goal is that everyone has the ability to be every role, but that they fulfill different styles and different opportunities. And some classes are going to fulfill a very powerful role in different ways. They're going to be really good damage dealer, they're going to be really good tank, they're going to be really good support role. And that's okay. That's what's going to make the classes, the professions feel very different from each other. And so, but that everyone can become every role, and especially on the fly, and especially while in combat, sometimes you're fighting that thief might need to just take, a really powerful monster just for a little while and be able to dodge around a little bit so that your tank could heal up a bit and get back into the fight. And that's kind of the idea, is not only can the fight adapt and different people take on different roles, but people can also spec themselves out to be kind of janky different characters. They're not going to be the best, but they can fulfill it in interesting ways.
Talking about the thief running in and out or jumping, how would you think are the people adapting to that new kind of position play? So when I was playing, for example, with random people in Guild-Wars 1, people usually stood around in the firestorms and didn't care a lot about that. So are people really? Do you think people did get more clever, or do you really have systems to encourage them more to do that, to evade things like this?
Well, I think anytime we try to create and introduce a new system, there's multiple things that we need to do. We're creating the system where everyone can do different things to feel clever, but we also need to teach this new system to create and feel clever, and that's something that we're working on. We need to spend a lot more time on teaching how to use the system and how to feel clever, and explain how to do it. But and that's some more work that we need to do. But I think in the end, as long as the system is there to provide people will learn it, and people are going to enjoy it. And we need to do some teaching there. But I think people are yearning for something new, yearning for something innovative and different, and that's why we're trying to push the bounds of the box and find what we can do that's something different and doesn't have the normal paradigm and the normal way that you play the games. And I think we're coming up with something fun and different.
All right. Could we say that crowd control and support are mostly interchangeable overall? Are your characters designed in a way that makes neither of both necessary as long as the other is present? In particular, there are some MMOs where bosses are immune to crowd control. Is there something like that in Guild-Wars 2?
So crowd control is something that is both offensive and defense, and sure, it's definitely a support mechanic, but I don't think it is entirely a defining support mechanic. I think what makes someone feel like a support character is when I see them, I feel like I am better. That's what defines a support character to me. And yeah, that can be done through crowd control, but that can also be done through buffs, and that can also be done through many other ways. Whether it be a firewall in front of me that I'm shooting through, or which is inherently a very offensive action, but it can also be turned into a support mechanic. And so support can be done in many ways, but the nature of it is when this guy is with me, I feel like I am stronger, and that's what makes a support character a support character. And overall, we have lots of ways that we can do that. And so we'll definitely probably have bosses that have, some mechanics dealing with stopping lots and lots of crowd control in the game. We have lots of crowd control. And so the exact mechanics of whether it's immunity or, soft counters to it or all those different things, I'm not sure. We're still working on that and playing with those different things. I'm sure there's going to be all of the above because we have lots of bosses and lots of mechanics that we need to play with and lots of different things. But in the end, it really matters that support is multifaceted and lots of people can do it in many different ways, and that when you see someone that is set up to be a support character, you're excited that they are going to make you better in some way.
Okay. Some people maintain that the lack of traditional class roles could lead to a lack of team play, where basically everyone does their damage and healing on their own. Could you point out in how far your combat system demands or fosters teamwork, and how you achieve this without the roles, without the classic roles?
So some of the two main mechanics that we've added to the game to really encourage team play, one of them is resurrecting. Everyone can resurrect in the game. When multiple people get together, you're able to easily resurrect each other. And so it allows us to make combat more deadly, more exciting, more powerful. And this allows people to kind of support each other in a very natural, quick, and easy way. Everyone can do it. Everyone can help each other. And they find lots of little tricks to do it. Like the warrior can frenzy, which speeds up his all of his actions, and that makes him resurrect faster. Or the guardian can throw up a bubble that protects everyone and goes down and resurrects people. And so you're able to find the thief can stealth himself and go res people while he's stealth. And these things can find these ways to resurrect people, which is a very natural, simple way to support each other. Another way is the cross-profession combos. This is a very simple, natural way for people to come together and work as a team. And so we're using these two systems to really push players into naturally working with each other. And the key is that our teamwork is any number of people, any combination of characters just thrown together can work together, and it matters that you guys work together strategically as a team and not that you're sitting around waiting for some certain class combination before you go out and play. And that's what matters to us, is that you can see the tools that you have, the people that you have, and decide how you're going to overcome some challenge, not that you have predetermined the type of people that you need in order to beat the challenge, so that you're sitting around waiting for that combination. And that's really what matters to us.
Okay. Let's see what this is. Was the Sidekick system actually active in the last demos, and is it active now? Because I think we saw a bunch of 2 hits on the videos, both for and against players.
So the way our combat system works, the higher you are in level, the more damage you will do to something. And so what you usually saw in those last demos is someone attacking and killing something quite a bit lower level than them. Our sidekicking is not fully turned on. It's been disabled. Because we're still working on all of the pieces to it and how it's going to work. And once we get more of that fleshed out and worked out, we'll probably release a lot of the details to it. But right now, we're still working on how that's functioning and how it's wearing, and all the details and all that, how the thing's functioning, we haven't really talked about.
Okay. A considerable portion of the overall Guild-Wars 2 community was rather upset about some parts of the engineer design, like flamethrowers, napalm bombs, the rocket shot, and so on. May they hope for smaller scale changes in order to make the engineer a bit less modern and more fantasy-ish?
Well, so I think it's really important that the engineer is very kind of more modern, you would say, because it really represents that the Guild Wars 2 universe is growing and aging. The Char are this huge, race that is becoming, growing and becoming more engineer, and so every race is learning more technology, and you can see it. And the engineer represents the profession that is gathering this from all the races, from the Char and from the humans and from the Asura, and he's gathering that all together and using that as a power. Just like the Elementalist uses all the elements as a power, and the warrior uses all the masteries of knowledge as a power, the Elementalist is using all the technology in the world as a power. And so I think it would be weird if all this technology is growing in the world, and we don't have a profession that represents that. And so I think it's important that Guild Wars 2 shows that our world is aging and growing and becoming more technology driven, and the engineer represents that. The engineer represents that our world is growing and getting older and getting more powerful. And I think that's what his role is in the lore and the feel and the fun. And he also gets to play around with some fun, cool gadget-like things.
Okay. In particular, I read an argument that the engineer did not feel like being a logical product of the Tiere technology progress because it adapts so many things we know from our time without adding much of a Guild Wars 2 twist to them. What you bring forward against that argument? You already talked about that, of course.
It's fine. I think the biggest thing is if you really look and play around and you go through the Char City and go through the Human City, and you can really see all the different things in the world. I don't think the engineer feels as out of place as it feels. There are so many things in the world that really fit in with exactly what he's doing. All of the gadgets and things that he's creating are really made to fit within our world. And so I think once you really start to see all those pieces, it won't feel as out of place.
Okay. From last year's show, we know that the difficulty level of the demo had been turned down to make things not too hard for demo players. Is this also the case for this year's demo, and has it been the case for the PAX one?
So we don't really turn down the difficulty for the demos, but we have a lot of content in our game from easy to hard. And when it comes to a demo, we tend to show things that are very easy, very simple to get into. Like we tend to show off intro experiences, or we tend to show off a high-level area where we've made you quite a bit higher level than the map. And this is because when someone's never played the game or jumps into the game, we really want to make sure that it's easy for them to just get into the game and play. And so if you really want this hard experience, there are going to be the dungeons, and there are going to be, a lot of this harder content in the game. But we don't really show that off in the demo because we don't want someone to be running up against some difficult, hard challenge when they're trying to learn how to walk around in the game or just try to learn and experience the game. And so we're not really trying to dial it down, but we're trying to show someone that very intro experience to the game and really get them to be attached and to love the game as much as we do, without seeing all the challenges of the game before they actually know how to play the game.
Yes. Some minor concerns from the previous demos include not very fluent mob animations, especially when changing their direction and a rather unresponsive AI. Have you identified these problems, and are they being worked on?
So, we always have a long list of things that we're working on and trying to improve, and these are definitely things that are on that list. We're definitely looking at monster AI and always improving our animations in different ways. And so, these are definitely things that are on our list. That's one of the reasons why, when we say, until it's done, that's the things that we're trying to do. We really want to make sure that we put out things that we're happy with, and that the whole game is at a quality bar that we're really, proud of. And so there's tons of things all over the world in the game that we want to tweak and play with, and some of those things are definitely on that list.
All right. That's not this. In recent blog entries and interviews, there was an amount of spoilers that I found rather surprising. I even know some details about the catacombs and boss. Do you have some sort of spoiler policy that determines what should be given away in interviews regarding story and such?
You probably have to talk a lot more with Martin about this one. I'm not super familiar with it, but we definitely are very careful about the different things that we talk about. We don't want to give too much of the game away. We definitely haven't shown a lot of the ends of too many things, because we don't want to ruin the story of the game. We don't want to ruin those things. So we're very conscious internally about what we show to everyone and how we show it. But at the same time, we really want to get everyone very excited about the game. We really want to show people what we're making and how much we love. So it's always kind of this, looking at the game and saying, what can we show that was going to get everyone really excited. It's one of the reasons why we really like showing off a lot of the intro experiences and those things in these demos, because you can get people excited to see these different worlds in these games without spoiling anything for them.
In a German game magazine, someone said that it was sometimes a bit disappointing that the game was quite easy for him when he saw the demo, because he said that there is no death penalty like we have in Guild Wars 1, and he said he slayed one monster with his group and then died, but it didn't matter because he just went back and killed another one, and so they have slain the whole group of monsters. But he said there was no real challenge.
Well, like I said, we have so many different types of content in the game, and we usually try to show you the stuff that's easier. And you don't want to, someone's new to the game, someone's trying to learn how to move around and learn your skills and learn what event systems are. You don't want to throw really hard content at them. You don't want to throw really challenging things at them, because they're just trying to learn. And so you really ease people into things, and you get those really hard, challenging encounters when they're ready for them, and when they have opportunity to make the choices to move on to harder stuff. And so in the very beginning of the game, that's not the moment and the right opportunity for it. And even then, you can go into the demo and you can blast through things and run to places that are really hard for you. And so there's ways that you can make the thing very difficult for you. But we're still working on getting smoothing that stuff out. But the beginning of the game is usually not the place that you want the game to be extremely difficult. You want that to be, towards the end of the game or towards the middle of the game, when a player is really, found out how to use their character and is learning how to make their build and all that types of stuff. And so that's kind of part of our strategy. And yeah, we tend to show the beginning of the game off in these demos, but a lot of that is because we don't want to spoil the story, because we don't want to, ruin people's experience that are just new to the game. And these are just strategies to really get people involved in playing our game.
Okay, that's already all of our questions. So thank you a lot, and I really can't wait to play the game.
Thank you very much.